Hey guys, today or tonight we're going to talk about the lasting impacts of the Reformation. You can see the SOL below. We're also going to talk about the role of the printing press. So let's go ahead and get started. So the long-term effects of the Reformation. Secularism, that's a term we've been talking about a lot through the Renaissance and the Reformation. Secular, again, means non-religious, not of the church. So ism means a belief, so secularism is in the belief of humans outside of the church or outside of religion. Um, so essentially, secularism, stemming from the Renaissance and then through the Reformation, spreads throughout the rest of the world and throughout society. There's this new belief that things of this world can be focused on this world. We don't have to just focus on religion in the afterlife. So we're focusing on education. We're focusing on art for art's sake, not just for depicting religion. We're focusing on what the individual person wants. And that leads us right into individualism, which is a belief in the individual, or a belief in the importance and the ability of the individual. So from this stems yet again this belief that we can focus on ourselves. We can be concerned with what affects us and not necessarily what affects the whole or the good of the whole. So again, that idea of individualism spread throughout Europe and throughout the world and is a lasting impact of the Reformation that we can see in our lives today. The United States, America, is a country that really prides itself on the individual and focusing on the individual. We see a lot of things where we promote or we celebrate individual accomplishments. Other cultures, even today, aren't necessarily that way. They still celebrate the community good and communal efforts. But here in America, we definitely are focused on the individual, and that is stemming from the Renaissance and the Reformation. It's where it started. Next, religious tolerance. So, of course, this is a big one. It's huge. The Reformation is where we had a break with Catholicism that was dominant throughout all of Europe. So the Catholic Church is no longer the sole church in Europe. It's not the primary power anymore. We have Protestants, we have Calvinists and Lutherans and Presbyterians, and we have all sorts of new religions, Protestant religions popping up. And throughout all of Europe, there's more and more and more religious tolerance. Just think of the Huguenots in France and the Edict of Nantes. There's a movement for tolerance of religion, or Elizabeth I in England, who created the Anglican Church to try to create unity between the Protestants and the Catholics there. So there's this new push for religious tolerance. However, just remember, kind of a side note, that this is tolerance for Christian religions at this point in time. Still, during the Reformation and the time period right after, there's not a lot of tolerance for Jews and Muslims. Well, really none for Jews and Muslims in Europe at the time. So religious tolerance, but that's where it begins. Just think, even though at that time it wasn't, but that's where it all begins. And lastly, education. So just like in the Renaissance, the Reformation, there's this huge push for education. The Bible is now in vernacular, which means vernacular means the spoken language of a certain area. So the Bible is in vernacular. Protestants are telling everyone, you need to be able to read the Bible so that you can interpret yourself and you can have your own relationship with God. So there's this push for people to be able to read. For people to be able to read, they have to be educated. So education is huge. There's print available for people to learn and to read. Even the Jesuits, remember, from the Catholic Reformation, the Jesuits are starting schools throughout all of Europe. Education becomes extremely important and more widespread. And then next, the Gutenberg printing press. So we've mentioned the printing press throughout the Renaissance and the Reformation. We haven't had a section solely devoted to the printing press yet, but as we have said many, many times, the printing press was crucial. It was critical for the Renaissance and the Reformation and the spread of those ideas. The printing press is what made it possible to take those ideas and spread them all throughout Europe. Printing multiple copies of something was now quick and it was cheap.
Before, people had to handwrite everything. So a book took years to finish, or a year, years, depending on how big the book was, and had to be done painstakingly by hand, one page at a time. And now you could do multiple pages. You could run through things with the printing press, and it was cheap. It was easy to do because it was so fast. So those ideas were able to be copied and transferred and sent throughout all of Europe. Think of Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. That it was critical for the Protestant Reformation, for the Reformation to happen, that those ideas were able to spread throughout all of Europe. So crucial for spreading the ideas of the Renaissance and the Reformation. It was crucial, like I said before, when I was talking about education, for the Bible to be able to be printed in vernacular. Now people can have their Bibles and really start reading them, just like Protestants were advocating, people could get copies of the Bible in their vernacular to read, and growth of literacy, because the Protestants are advocating for people to begin reading the Bible for themselves, and because these schools are popping up everywhere thanks to the Jesuits and other people, there's a growth of literacy. So printing press, super important. Gutenberg created it. All right guys, that is the end of our unit on the Reformation. Thanks so much.